Mr. True Gold, thank you for the $10. Doc, I lost my job out of the blue Wednesday without warning. A job I worked for years since I got out of the Marine Corps, but we ain't scared of nothing. Fucking, I don't like to hear that. Please tell me it doesn't have anything to do with the coronavirus. I have to bite my tongue when it comes to this coronavirus, because I know there's just like there's in fact probably even the majority are in this whole like still like we need to stay self-quarantine and everything, but this percentage of open the gate up is getting a little bit wider, and trust me, and I don't want, like, I gotta bite my tongue. I gotta bite my tongue. Because then I'm tapping into politics, and people are extremely passionate about politics and perspective, and then you know, I am a bit like, if you want to quote me as I am Drdisrespect, right? I don't give a fuck, right? Man, I don't know if I can't get into it, man. This is what I was upset about the other day. That it just gets me upset. It does. There's a bigger agenda happening. There's bigger agenda going on, man. I'm with Elon. Like, I'll just say it. I'm with Elon Musk. Like, look at the data. Just look at it, man. And we are prolonging something. I gotta stop. I'm with Elon Musk, though. That's all I'll say. Hey, Elon. I don't like your ugly looking truck, but I agree with you on the whole coronavirus thing. But your trucks are ugly. I mean, I don't agree with you there, okay? That's a titanium thread. It's going to be on eBay later tonight. I mean, Elon, I don't need Elon to convince me. I was already convinced before Elon, but Elon was like, have someone of his magnitude and his expert, it's pretty clear, you know, that he gets it. In terms of humanity and where we're trying to go and trying to expand outside of, like, you know, he's big advocate of pollution and global warming and all this stuff, and then we're trying to expand. Like, I'm on board with this type of thinking, you know, like, and for him to be very animate about opening up the gates back up, and then, you know, I'm just, anyways, I'm bringing his Twitter up. The data is in. This is something Elon Musk tweeted out. An article from The Hill. And I feel like I I almost kind of want to read this. It's not that long, but I feel like I should read this, ladies and gentlemen. So grab a coffee, grab your little eggs, grab your little bacon. Remember, not too much salt on it. Sodium intake is not good for you in the long run. So just kind of go easy on the salt this morning, right? A lot of you like to pour salt all over your eggs and shit. You know, you don't pour salt on your eggs. You do it before you make your scrambled eggs. Anyways, I'm just going to read this. The tragedy of COVID-19 pandemic appears to be entering the containment phase. Tens of thousands of Americans have died, and Americans are now desperate for sensible policymakers who have the courage to ignore the panic and rely on facts. Leaders must examine accumulated data to see what has actually happened rather than keep emphasizing hypothetical projections. Combine that empirical evidence with fundamental principles of biology established for decades and then thoughtfully restore the country to function. What the hell did I just read? But for whatever reason, it makes sense. But there's a few words in there. I would have to go on Wikipedia and kind of look at the real true meaning. Anyways, 5 key facts are being ignored by those calling for continuing the near total lockdown. Fact number 1, the overwhelming majority of people do not have any significant risk of dying from COVID-19. A recent Stanford University, that's just a small, I don't know, little junior college up in Oregon. The recent Stanford University antibody study now estimates that the fatality rate of infected is likely 0.1 to 0.2%, a risk far lower than previous World Health Organization estimates that were 20 to 30 times higher estimates, and that motivated isolation policies. In New York City, an epicenter of the pandemic, I would not, and shout out to those that are self-quarantined in New York. That's got to be tough to be quarantined in New York. You know, a place like that with elevators and like, I have never been to New York, but I could just only imagine. I've been to San Francisco, obviously in LA. It's just different probably in New York because it's much bigger, but more, everything's sort of this, it's a tight feel. Anyways, in New York City, an epicenter of the pandemic with more than 1/3 of all U.S. deaths, the rate of death for people 18 to 45 years old is 0.01% or 10 per 100,000 in the population. On the other hand, people aged 75 and over have a death rate 80 times that. For people under 18 years old, the rate of death is 0 per 100,000. Okay, so of all fatal cases in New York State, two-thirds were in patients over 70 years of age, more than 95% were over 50 years of age, and about 90% of all fatal cases had underlying illness. 90% of all the fatal cases had an underlying illness attached to it. Of 6,570 confirmed COVID-19 deaths fully investigated for underlying conditions to date, 6,520 or 99.2% had an underlying illness. If you do not already have an underlying chronic condition, your chances of dying are small regardless of age. I mean, still there's death, and that's still like that's there, right? And young adults and children in normal health have almost no risk of any serious illness from COVID-19. Fact number 2, protecting older at-risk people eliminates hospital overcrowding. By the way, the whole argument about hospitals being overcrowded, that is out of the picture. Okay? April 1st prediction for hospital bed occupancy. Newsom prediction. April 10th. No intervention. Okay. Here's the actual data. And it's crazy because the hospitals are like, people are being laid off. We can learn about, I'm almost done with the article, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. We've got about just a couple more paragraphs, okay? I know reading is not in your guys' forte these years. I know, I get it. Everything's visual. Like, gimme consumption. I need quick consumption, or else I'm off the channel. I'm going somewhere else where I can get a quick laugh and giggle for 5 minutes, and then I'm off that channel. I'm going to another channel for a quick consume. Then I'm off the platform because I need to eat. Boom, I eat. I did my 7th grade little algebra test. That's online now, and now I'm back on Twitch. And you know what? I don't even want to watch Twitch. Now I'm back on Fortnite. I want to play like 2-3 games with my friends. Oh man, my friends aren't on. My mommy's calling me to clean up my bed. I'm not gonna make my bed. I'm going back on Twitch, and I'm gonna watch even. And that's how your day is, right? Like, it's all over. Anyways, we can learn about hospital utilization from data from New York City, the hotbed of COVID-19, with more than 34,600 hospitalizations to date. For those under 18 years of age, hospitalization for the virus is 0.01%, or 11 per 100,000 people. For those 18 to 44 years old, hospitalization is 0.1%. Even for people ages 65 to 74, 1.7% were hospitalized. Of 4,103 confirmed COVID-19 patients with symptoms bad enough to seek medical care, Dr. Lowry concluded age is far and away the strongest risk factor for hospitalization. Even early WHO reports noted that 80% of all cases were mild, and more recent studies show a far more widespread rate of infection, a lower rate of serious illness. Half of all the people testing positive for infection have no symptoms at all. The vast majority of younger, otherwise healthy people do not need to significantly medical care if they catch this infection. Fact 3, vital population immunity is prevented by total isolation policies, prolonging the problem. We know from decades of medical science that infection itself allows people to generate an immune response, antibodies, so that the infection is controlled throughout the population by herd immunity. Indeed, that is the main purpose of widespread immunization and other viral diseases, to assist with population immunity. In this virus, we know that medical care is not even necessary for the vast majority of people who are infected. It is so mild that half of infected people are You don't know what it is? So you want me to just sort of wing it? Okay, I'll wing it. Half of infected people are asymptomatic. Yeah. Shown in early data from the Diamond Princess ship. Wow, that sounds like something that little baby assassin would make up. The Diamond Princess ship. The hell was that? Someone said true. And then in Iceland and Italy, that has been falsely portrayed as a problem requiring mass isolation. In fact, infected people without severe illness are the immediately available vehicle for establishing widespread immunity. By transmitting the virus to others in a low-risk group who then generate antibodies, they block the network of pathways towards the most vulnerable people, ultimately ending the threat. Extending whole population isolation would directly prevent that widespread immunity from developing. Fact 4. We're almost done, ladies and gentlemen. For those that I can't do this anymore. I can't watch him read stuff because I'm not willing to just be open to absorbing information, and whether I like it or not, I don't know. People are dying because other medical care is not getting done due to hypothetical projections. Critical health care for millions of Americans is being ignored, and people are dying to accommodate potential COVID-19 patients and for fear of spreading the disease. Most states and many hospitals abruptly stopped non-essential procedures and surgery. That prevented diagnosis of life-threatening diseases like cancer screening, biopsies of tumors now undiscovered, and potentially deadly brain aneurysms. Treatments, including emergency care for the most serious illness, were also missed. Cancer patients deferred chemotherapy. An estimated 80% of brain surgery cases were skipped. Acute stroke and heart attack patients missed their only chance for treatment, some dying and many now facing permanent disability. Fuck, man. Fact 5. We have a clearly defined population at risk who can be protected with targeted measures. The overwhelming evidence that all over the world consistently shows that a clearly defined group, old people and others with underlying conditions, is more likely to have a serious illness requiring hospitalization and more likely to die from COVID-19. Knowing that, it is common sense, achievable goal to target isolation policy to that group, including strictly monitoring those who interact with them. Nursing home residents, the higher risk, should be the most straightforward to systematically protect from infected people, given that they already live in confined places with highly restricted entry. It makes sense to me. Absolutely. The appropriate policy based on fundamental biology and the evidence already in hand is to institute a more focused strategy like some outlined in the first place. Strictly protect the known vulnerable, self-isolate the mildly sick, and open most workplaces and small businesses with some prudent large group precautions. This would allow the essential socializing to generate immunity among those with minimal risk of serious consequence, while saving lives, preventing overcrowding of hospitals, and limiting the enormous harms compounded by continued total isolation. Let's stop underemphasizing empirical evidence while instead doubling down on hypothetical models. Agree. Facts matter. Thank you, Scott. From Stanford University's Hoover Institution. Thank you. And I wanted to bite my tongue. I really did. But I couldn't help. I couldn't help myself. Welcome back. There's one more thing that I got to read that to you guys, and I appreciate you guys listening. Okay? I'm gonna show something that is not directly related to what I just talked about. Something else that this what I'm about to show you, along with what I just read, combining the two together, that's what gets me upset. Because I'll bite my tongue, but there's an agenda that we'll just never be able to know or understand or get the true information from. That's all. Okay? But I got to figure out how to get it. Alex, play some music or something. Hey, don't make the situation like a. Right? This is me just. Bringing in a little enlightenment, if that's a full, complete word. If it isn't, it is now. There it is.
I can't help but say something about this whole coronavirus thing, if you want me to. So, again, when you know Steiner, you have the answers to the test, but you have to then figure out the details. In 1918, after the huge, biggest pandemic, the Spanish flu pandemic.
Forget the whole flat Earth point of view line at the bottom. Don't just forget about that, right?
Say something about this whole coronavirus thing, if you want me to.
It has nothing to do with any of his points. So, just FYI.
Again, when you know Steiner, you have the answers to the test, but you have to then figure out the details. In 1918, after the huge, biggest pandemic, the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, Steiner was asked, what was this all about? And he said, well, viruses are simply excretions of a toxic cell. Viruses are pieces of DNA or RNA with a few other proteins. They bud out from the cell. They happen when the cell is poisoned. They are not the cause of anything. And the first way I would encourage you to think about this is if you are a famous dolphin doctor, right? And you have been studying dolphins in the Arctic Circle for hundreds of years, or at least a long time.
Listen up, you guys.
Fine. And then they call you up, Fred, all the dolphins, or a lot of the dolphins are dying in the Arctic Circle. Can you come and investigate? Right? And you have one question to ask. So show of hands, how many of you would say, I want to investigate a dolphin to see the genetic makeup of that dolphin? Nobody, because that's stupid. How many of you would say, I want to see if this dolphin and that dolphin has a virus because it might be contagious and that's why all these dolphins are getting sick? That fellow. How many of you would say, excuse my French here, somebody put some shit in the water here? Like Exxon Valdez? Anybody? Everybody. Because that's what happened. And the cells get poisoned. They try to purify themselves by excreting debris, which we call viruses. If you go to the current theory of viruses called exosomes, and the latest head of the NIH giving a talk on the complexity of viruses, you will see this is perfectly in line with the current thinking on what a virus really is. I had a dramatic example of this when I was growing up. Right outside our house, there was a wetlands, and they were full of frogs, and the frogs kept me up at night, so I taped the windows, and in the spring they made a big racket. And then over time, the frogs were all gone. How many thinks the frogs had a genetic disease? How many think the frogs had a virus? How many think somebody put DDT into the water? That's what happened. Diseases are poisoning. It's one of the reasons why vaccines. So let me skip that for a minute. So what happened in 1918? There was a huge, in every pandemic in the last 150 years, there was a quantum leap in the electrification of the Earth. In 1918, late fall of 1917, there was the introduction of radio waves around the world. Whenever you expose any biological system to a new electromagnetic field, you poison it, you kill some, and the rest go into a kind of suspended animation so that, interestingly, they live a little bit longer and sicker. And then starts in World War II with the next pandemic with the introduction of radar equipment all over the Earth, blanketing the entire Earth in radar fields. First time humans have ever been exposed to that. In 1968, there was the Hong Kong flu, and it was the first time the Earth has a protective layer in the Van Allen belt, which essentially integrates the cosmic fields from the sun and the Earth, from the moon and Jupiter, etc., integrates that and essentially distributes that to the living beings of the Earth. And we put satellites emitting radioactive frequencies in the Van Allen belt. Within 6 months, we had a new viral pandemic. Why viral? Because the people are poisoned, they excrete toxins, they look like viruses. People think it's a flu epidemic. In the 1918 epidemic, the Boston Health Department decided to investigate the contagiousness of this. So they, believe it or not, took hundreds of people with the flu and they sucked the snot out of their nose and injected it into the healthy people who didn't have the flu. And not one time could they make the next person sick. They did this over and over again, and they were not able to demonstrate contagion. They even did it with horses who apparently got the Spanish flu, and they put bags over their head, and the horses sneezed in the bag, and they put the bag over the next horse, and not one horse got sick. You can read about this in a book called The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Furstenberg, who chronicles all the steps in the electrification of the Earth and how within 6 months there was a new flu pandemic all over the world. And when you hear the normal explanations, how did it go from Kansas to South Africa in 2 weeks? So the entire world got the symptoms at the same time, in spite of the fact that the mode of transportation was horseback and boats, and there's no explanation for it. They just say, we don't know how that happened. But when you think about it, with these radio waves and other frequencies that some of you have in your pocket and on your wrist, you can send a signal to Japan and it arrives instantaneously. So any of you who don't believe there's an electromagnetic field that communicates globally within seconds just is not paying attention to this. And I will only finish by pointing out that there has been a dramatic and quantum leap in the last 6 months with the electrification of the Earth. And I'm sure a lot of you know what that is. It's called 5G, where they now have 20,000 radiation-emitting satellites, just like the radiation-emitting thing in your pocket and on your wrist and that you use all the time. That is not compatible with health. I'm sorry to say it. It's not compatible with health. That is a water destructuring device. And for any of you who say, yeah, well, we're not electrical beings, we're just physical matter, then don't bother doing an EKG or an EEG or a nerve conduction test, because we are electrical beings and the chemicals are only the byproduct of those electrical impulses. And I'll finish with, anybody want to make one guess as to where the first completely blanketed 5G city in the world was? Exactly. So when you start thinking about this, we are in an existential crisis here.
That's all. I had to get it off my chest. That's what was upsetting me. All these things. And I'm with Elon Musk, man. Broken Dryer, thank you for the 20 gifted subs. Like every day that I've been streaming during this time, I feel like I'm reading multiple donations of someone being laid off and there's nothing they can do about it, and they're probably going to be going through some tough times that were out of their control. And it sucks, you know. Elon is the one putting 5G satellites in space. Well, shit, there goes everything that I said then. Come on, guys. Jesus. All I'm saying is that me being able to talk about that, read that stuff, let's just not be robotic in this. Like, let's not be robots and go, yes, sir, we will do everything that you do. And tell us, government, and sir, and follow our, like, let's do it. Like, let's listen to the experts in the like, I don't know. Again, I gotta bite my tongue. That's enough of that. Let's play some Warzone! Ah!